appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. This is such an important topic, and I don't know about everybody else, but these kinds of issues are increasingly on our radar in Florida. Ben, if you'll flip to the next slide. Uh, Florida, for those of you who don't know, is the southeastern United States, the little peninsula that sticks off the southeast United States. Uh, this is a beautiful picture I took in Northwest Florida on the first anniversary of Hurricane Michael, a Category 5 hurricane that came through and absolutely devastated the area. It really captures for me the tension between a beautiful place to live at the same time, very much challenged by the increasing effects of climate change. We've flipped to the next slide, please. And just zip through all those. Yep. Perfect. So thought I would give you just kind of a quick overview of Florida's housing landscape so you understand what we're dealing with here and what the pressures are that are competing. We have a deficit of roughly 1 million units at all different kinds of income levels and situations of life that we need to catch up on our housing challenges in Florida. It's a wonderful place to live, and so we are importing about 800 people a day to the state of Florida on average. And the places they come from are primarily the states of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and California, top 5, all places that have higher incomes and typically folks with higher assets than the locals in Florida. And so our for-profit development community is largely building $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 houses or $2,500, $3,000 a month apartments, which by New York standards seem relatively inexpensive. So Florida is a very attractive place, both environmentally and economically, for folks to move to. On the other hand, our median wages in the state are below the national average. And so for somebody earning $20 an hour, you're just completely priced out of the housing market in a lot of places. And by the way, we've had increasing numbers and impacts from major hurricanes over the last few years. Flip down to the next slide, please. And of course, all the challenges that a lot of us are experiencing, that everybody wants more housing built at affordable prices, but nobody wants to pay for that. A lot of NIMBY effects and so forth. So it's a challenging place to be developing. The bigger those funding gaps get, the more important community land trusts and the preservation of housing affordability in perpetuity becomes, the more important it becomes to knit together communities around solutions, including addressing the effects of climate change. So if you'll flip to the next slide. At Bright Community Trust, we were started out of a county government unit back in 2008. We are working so that everybody in the state has access to a good home that they like to live in, that's not too far from work, close to a good school for the kids, fits in their budget comfortably. We do a lot of different things to do that, traditional CLT development and stewardship work. We also do a lot of convening, a lot of data and policy work to address these issues in various ways. So I thought I would show you just kind of a slice of different things that we're doing to get at these issues on different levels. You can flip to the next slide and just show you a very quick view of where we're working around the state. Next slide, please. Let me start with showing you on the left there a townhome project that Bright developed a few years back. These are townhomes. This is a mixed income community, which we love. It has low income affordable, moderate income affordable, and unrestricted income units all in the same community. But they're also net zero energy. So they have high efficiency building envelopes. They have solar hot water heaters. They have solar photovoltaic panels over the garages. And so over the course of a year, net zero energy bill. Important both as an environmental solution, but also important economically. We know that after the mortgage payment, after a car payment for those who have one, the electric bill is often the next biggest bill in our household's budget. And so having a net zero power bill is really important economically as well. We're seeing that particularly as insurance costs rise in response to storm effects over the last few years. And so anything that we can do to keep costs down for people, increasingly important. If you'll flip to the next slide, please. Put in a slide here about one particular hurricane that we dealt with, Hurricane Ian, that hit Florida in September of 2022. Came ashore across Sanibel Island and impacted the communities of Fort Myers, Naples, Cape Coral, that area of Southwest Florida, destroyed over 5,000 homes, damaged about 30,000 more significantly. So a giant amount of recovery work to be done. And I think it's important to recognize that this has kind of ripple effects. The housing is devastated. A lot of the people who lose their housing are the local workforce who would be helping to rebuild. And so people may be staying in a motel an hour and a half, 2 hours away, commuting back, trying to repair their own home while also participating in the repair of other homes in the community. So the effects of not just direct housing loss, but the challenges it presents to the local workforce, the changes to the local economy that result are also pretty big and important effects that we're trying to mitigate in the rebuilding. One of the things that we saw, if you flip to the next slide, in the Resilient Lee, this is Lee County, so the Resilient Lee Long-Term Recovery Task Force that was formed after this was conversations about how do we change building codes, what kinds of things are we going to allow for, and unfortunately, a lot of pushback from cities. I'm thinking of one of the local cities, for instance, that said, yes, about a third of the homes in our city experienced flooding as a result of storm surge, as a result of Hurricane Ian, but we're not willing to allow homes to be elevated up on stilts. That would change the look and the feel of our community. And so, in spite of the fact that that might make a lot of sense from a resiliency point of view, we're going to prioritize keeping the traditional look and feel of the community over prioritizing climate resiliency. We have experienced that to be a pretty challenging thing to address, certainly something where we've got a lot of work to do, especially as we're trying to rebuild thousands and thousands of homes in communities like Lee County that were devastated by Hurricane Ian. Next slide, please. One of the exciting things that Bright has done recently, we hosted now former U.S. Census Director Rob Santos last summer for 3 days around the state. And if you'll flip to the next slide, please. One of those days we spent down in Fort Myers, right in the storm impacted area, and talked about disaster recovery, talked about community resilience and so forth. For those of you in the US, if you're not already looking at the resources that Census has, that can be very helpful in understanding what kinds of effects happen in communities as you're impacted by disasters, would definitely point you in this direction. On the right there, one of their census subject matter experts is presenting the Community Resilience Estimates tool. You can find that online on the census.gov website. Was a great opportunity to talk about some of the kind of invisible elements of resiliency. She said, I'm not from here, so I'm just going to pick something in the area and show you the tool. And somebody in the room said, well, that can't be an area that's vulnerable, that has resiliency risk factors. That's a country club community that's quite affluent. How confident are you in the data that goes into building these maps? And she said, well, let's look at the factors. And what we discovered was in this community where we see a relatively elevated resiliency risk, a higher than average number of older residents, a higher than average number of residents where somebody in the household has a disability, and a higher than average number of households that don't own a car. When you look at those three factors taken together, in the event of a storm or other kind of disaster, now we've got indeed a very vulnerable community that may be very affluent, but in a census tract of, say, 4,500 people, if 5% have that confluence of three factors, uh, older adults, more frequent incidence of somebody with a disability who's probably going to have more challenges evacuating, but may not own a car, so not able to do their own evacuation in a timely fashion. That's definitely something we need to be planning for in planning for resiliency. So a really interesting tool and an accidental anecdote, but about the kinds of ways that resiliency can be pretty invisible to us that we need to be thinking about at a community level. Can we flip to the next slide, please? One other thing that Bright has been working on as a result of, or in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, Florida has a state housing disaster task force. And in my time on that task force, we got weekly reports after the storm, and we were hearing from FEMA and from the other folks doing the counts of how many homes were damaged or destroyed. They're literally walking up and down streets and cataloging homes in the immediate aftermath of the storm. What I realized was if you're just reporting a raw number of how many homes were damaged, how many took major damage, moderate damage, minor damage, how many were destroyed, you're actually not telling us what's coming back there. And so if we're just reporting raw numbers, all I'm hearing is homes that went away. Well, I don't know if that's a $10 million beachfront vacation home that nobody lives in year round that probably has great insurance and is getting rebuilt pretty quickly, or if that's a $200,000 house that somebody on a teacher's salary could afford to buy 10 years ago, but couldn't possibly afford to replace, that goes away and gets replaced by a $600,000 new build because somebody gets tired of waiting on insurance payment, takes cash from an investor, and exits. So we may be replacing housing units, but we may be losing really important affordability functions in the housing economy. So we've been working with a national partner called DataKind that does data for good kinds of work to build a tool to overlay the FEMA storm impact data, the Census American Community Survey data, and parcel level data from the property appraiser's office to understand better what kinds of housing are affected in what ways by hurricanes. We still have some work to do on this. This is kind of an early pilot version, and we're hoping to update this. If you go to the next slide, you can see kind of a quick initial build of this. It's certainly got some work to do, but the kind of tool that we're trying to build, we hope to be able to pilot in Florida and then share anywhere in the country to be able to measure the housing effects of disasters. And then if you flip one more slide, a couple things that are on our horizon. First on the left, we'll be 3D printing our first homes later this year. We really like the particular build that we've landed on that builds an entirely concrete structure, including a concrete roof. We believe one that's more resistant to the immediate impacts of a storm, but also to the lingering effects of flooding or water intrusion because there's nothing organic in the structure. We're less affected by mold and mildew kinds of issues, less affected by termites and other things like that that we often see cropping up. So we'll keep you posted on that, but that's one of the things that we're doing to address resiliency in our builds a little bit better. And then on the right side of the slide, we've increasingly been paying attention to this nexus of housing, climate change, insurance costs, and so been talking with experts around the state, around the country, a couple even internationally, working on pulling together a convening on housing insurance and climate change online sometime this fall. So if that's a topic of interest to you, would love to hear from anybody and everybody. Happy to invite you to participate as we look at those issues and try to look for solutions, because we think that insurance costs may be one lever that start to push for some movement in the direction of actually addressing climate change and its effects on housing. So an important piece of the conversation. Last slide is my contact info, and would be happy to talk with anybody today, take questions, or have you follow up. You're welcome to call or email me anytime. Thanks so much.